What up, peeps? It's your girl, Dash, coming back to Frontal Takes. Well, it's that time, you guys. It's a movie review time, and this is for No Time to Die, of course, starring Daniel Craig. I will say off the cuff, I'm just going to go in straight into spoilers. I just want to feel like, since it's bittersweet, I don't feel like holding anything back, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I don't want to talk too long and ramble on. So with that said, let's go and jump into it. Of course, directed by Cary Joji Fukunaga. Fan of some of his work. If you saw season one, True Detective, Beasts of No Nation, and Maniac, definitely does some good work. Now, I will say this: I was happy when it finally came out because we waited well over a year for this, of course, due to situation with COVID, and just the simple fact that it's the last hurrah for Daniel Craig playing James Bond. Of course, we go back to 2006 with Casino Royale, and of course, I'm doing Quantum Solace, then of course Skyfall, and then Spectra. Now, I will say this with this one. I love that we get some of our, previous, cast members coming back, and then also get introduced to some new ones. One being Rami Malek, who plays Yusufer Safin. Definitely a little devious. I will say a little iffy on the villain aspect, not as chilling to me per se, but he made it work. There were certain scenes where he really was there. I will say an opening sequence. With the character Madeline, played by Leah Seydoux, who was, of course, in Spectra. She ends up dealing with a situation where her and her mother are put in, a very precarious situation where she's young, and the character Safin is coming to see her father, which is not there, and that's played by, of course, Christoph Waltz, Blofeld. And you see that since he can't find him, he's just going to tend to the family, to deal with them. Pretty much being that Blofeld is the reason his family's dead, so he's going to hurt him and his family. So you see where instantly, where of course the poor thing, the mother's gone, but the little girl got a little kudos in her for Madeline. Know how to use a gun and everything. Thinks that she's killed him, because that was a really interesting scene. I really enjoyed that because I really thought she did. And when she ends up on the ice, she ends up under the water, and you see a part where he feels for her for a second and he decides to save her. But with that comes a debt, and a debt that will be owed later on in the film. And of course, you go hence present day, and you just see, Daniel Craig's, Bond and Madeline just being together. But then certain things start to happen, where he decides he wants to go visit Vesper because she has a conversation with him. You need to move past whatever, resolving, issues or feelings you have for her. And probably in regards to how he felt, he finally opened up to her. If y'all remember in the movie Casino Royale and all that, he gave up a lot of stuff, whatever, to be with her. And she was keeping things from lying and all that, had a husband, whatever. And he decides to go visit her gravesite. And with that, there's a situation happen where you get the explosion, and that's when you see things kind of take off from there. Always the opening sequences, this was like a second one, besides the one with Madeline. And then of course the car chase scenes, always love those. You get introduced to one of the villains, like, a little henchman, name is, I think they said Cyclops, real name is Adali Ben Salah, I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. And definitely a formidable, and parts, of the actual, sequence with that chase and the little bit of a fight scene, whichever, but definitely effective. I love how eventually it sets it up where he doesn't feel he can trust Madeline. He feels like she has some part in this. How did they know where they were? All that kind of comes back into play, whatever. And she was not able to tell him certain things because she's like, if you tell me, that you can move past with Vesper, then I'll let you know I'm a secret. So that kind of sets up for why you see they eventually have to part, and 5 years have passed. So like you see kind of what's happening from what happened from Spectre of 2015 of them being together. 5 years past now, here we are current day. And he's just kind of retired. He's just living the life, has a beautiful home, like in the Caribbean, just doing his thing. And of course, you get introduced to him with Jeffrey Wright coming back into the fold, playing Felix. And he's bringing a gentleman with them named Logan Ash, played by, I want to say his name is Ben, Magnuson. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly too. And things are now what they appear to be, but Felix is on up and up, but Logan Ash's character is not, at first hints. But they decide, they want to pitch to him, we need you to come back in the fold, deal with this. We're dealing with something, and the plot overall is dealing with a weaponized virus, which is a courtesy of a doctor. And I want to try to remember his name as well. And I'm trying to think, I think his name was Dr. Valdo Abruchev. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. He, of course, working closely with, Safin's character, that to deal with this. And of course, you see sequences of that where they show up with their henchmen, killing everybody, whatever, and all that, leaving him alive to, tend to this virus, whatever, and all that, exchanging certain serums. Just a whole bunch going on there. But it definitely sets it up where Bond has to come back because it looks like this is something, of course, as you find out from M, was off the books. And now that they have this in their hands, they can use this, as I said, as a weapon. And it's something that was never supposed to be. It's supposed to be for their agents and to deal with certain things, where their agents are protected. But if it's dealing with somebody who's, an enemy, it could deal with, eradicating them, so to speak. So I like how he eventually comes on board, but then he gets introduced to what's considered now the new 007 time, and that's played by Lashana Lynch. Her name in here is Nomi, and I just like how their banter. Their banter at times is really interesting, trying to one up each other, especially when he shows back up at the building. You see the people like 007 and they both want to answer. It's just hilarious. And I really like that. I will say with their two characters, even though a little bit, not to say confrontation, but just a little bit of, showing who's where, in regards to rank or whatever. But then over time in the film, the respect is there for both, and you acknowledge that. And then you just getting the work done and getting the bad guys, which I like. So it's not like something that's going to grovel throughout the whole film, whatever. And I like that. They're both adults. So I just look at it like that. So, but besides that, Bond just kind of, trying to figure out what's going on, dealing with him having a, definitely a confrontation, with M, trying to address, what's going on with the situation. Why are you all doing this? Whatever. Now look, we have to go in here and kind of clean up, this scenario, but him knowing that this is wrong, you'll fall on him, but then they just deal with it. Definitely you see Moneypenny, you see, of course, Q, and I love his banter with Bond too. Ben Whishaw, he's hilarious. I just love me some him. But I do like there's a part where you do get to see where Felix's character wants him to meet with an agent who's kind of fresh, whatever, and that is Ana de Armas, who plays Paloma. And I will tell you, Ana did an amazing job for the scene you got. Hers was rather brief but very effective. She reminds me of really what's considered like a traditional Bond girl, and her fight sequences were really good. And I like how she played off of Bond, whatever, and all that. And she's like, I'm just out here, this is after 3 weeks training and all that. She's excited, she's a little nervous, and you can kind of see that, but she knows how to rise to the occasion. I like how in the end they get the guy and he's able to get him out of the doctor, Bond, whatever, and all that, even though Nomi shows up, whatever, to try to snatch him up for herself. But it was just a really good scene. I really wish she could have been in longer. You never know. They might, whenever they decide who's going to be the next Bond, they might bring her back, because I hope she gets a lot of people who shout her out, because she did really good. That I would love for her to come back and be in it and be a little bit more, integral in the actual overall film. But overall, as you move on, whatever, and all, you eventually see Madeline and Bond do a reunite because they're trying to deal with Blofeld to get information to figure out who this person is, who they have to deal with. But see, by then, Madeline's already met them. She's still working as a doctor, and this gentleman shows up. Now, if you saw the beginning of the sequence of the film with the backstory, there's a mask. It's in the trailer anyway he's wearing. And when he comes to see her, to talk to her, whatever, and all that, not very open about his own family, but kind of, is segueing a little bit into her past, whatever, like losing a family member and this and that, and saying, I brought little, artifacts of certain things that kind of helped me get my words out. And when she opens the box, you see it in the trailer, you see that mask, and it brings her back to that moment. And he's like, I saved you, like, you owe me, and I want you to do this. And she pretty much has to use that, virus, weaponized virus now, to pretty much, tend to her dad. And she doesn't have to go in there, because one thing with this weapon, this virus, if it's added to someone and they're not actual family member to the person, it can be used and very effective with killing another person, So that's, I don't, in regards to the gene pool, I can't go into details because I'm not a scientist, but needless to say that she ends up having to put this on her skin. She's in contact with Bond prior to her father being, brought into the room. She can't handle it, so she ends up having to leave. He could tell she's kind of freaking out. She's scared with it and all, but the damage is done because it's found its way to Bond's skin from him touching, like, you're shaking. She was freaking out. She's like, I gotta leave. I can't be in here. And then eventually she does leave, whatever, and all that. And then you see the confrontation between Blofeld and Bond, which was very interesting. The words coming out of his mouth, what he's saying to him, like, how much harm you really want to cause him, so he could feel lost. How the person with all the answers, is Madeline, and, hopefully you'll find out really what is the truth, and this and that and the other. And a lot going on there, and just him saying these things, you could tell Bond really wanted to just get rid of him at that moment, and he tried to take the life out of him through his neck, but he caught himself, but again, damage is done, Blofeld is gone, that virus found its way to him, he is gone. And you see eventually where he knows he has to find Madeline, and that's when you get a reveal. And that reveal is a young little girl, and just cute as a button. Her name is Mathilde, and she's played by Lisa, I want to say Dora Sonet. Cutie, 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 cutie. And of course, she is Madeline's daughter. And the funniest thing is, even in the theater, you could hear the people, and they were just like, he's like, oh, that's, he's like, she adamantly, it's not your daughter. It's not your daughter. And he's like, but what about the eyes? And her eyes are clear as day, look like Bond. So, but to move this along, eventually they all realize that all the information in that the doctor had put on a little bit of a disc when he was switching stuff over to cause the stuff that they needed in regards to the files of knowing how the stuff works, how many other companies they want to utilize this, virus on or whichever. They have to just pretty much deal with all this. They need to get to the location of where Safin's at, what that said. And of course, Madeline and Bond being together with the little girl. And of course, by then, they pretty much figure out where they are. I'm assuming Safin did because he remembers where Blofeld's, place is at, whatever. And that's where her place she would probably go to feel safe because it's kind of probably off the books. And you see another little, action sequence. I say it's 3 literally eye-popping ones. And this was one of those ones that was in the trailer where they're going through woods, trails of, of water, whatever, and all that. And so good. But eventually, Madeline and her daughter are caught by Safin, whichever, and that's kind of where we get to the end of the last scenes where Bond and Nomi decide to work together, team, whatever, and then, having to make the decision of trying to get in there and just be done with Safin and get her back. He's dealing with, Safin, pretty much trying to use the little girl, to get what he wants. And just in the end, Bond does get the upper hand, whatever, and all that. He's able to use Nomi and all that, set the little detonators all around to bomb out whatever. The people get out, they're trying to build this like garden thing, whatever, his little place where he's doing all this stuff. And needless to say, I like how, of course, you see a good fight sequence within this, little hideaway place where he's, creating this stuff. Doctor's been dealt with. Nomi dealt with him, threw him in the water, which was, contaminated with this virus and all that. He's dead. Glad about that. So all I can say is pretty much the way it's overall set up and the way it ends up ending is that they have him send, the Navy ships, to bomb up this building, whatever and all, because they said, if this stuff gets out, that's it. If you have all the other countries, like, what are you all doing? You have this aircraft in here, circling around this area. Why is it there? What's going on? You got to tell the heads what's going on. M's trying to shake them off as much as he can. You have, Q doing his thing, telling him where to go, how to turn his stuff on, what and all, open it up so they can have, the detonators, whatever, with the bombs, with the show they can blow up everything. But then he can't leave because, he sees, he finds the little toy the little girl loves, but then he comes back in contact with Safin, and Safin lets him know in a scene where he pretty much has a vial of what looks like to be the virus that has definitely been weaponized for sure with some of the DNA from Madeline. So he ends up causing it where it gets onto Bond, and it puts him in a situation where he can't be anywhere near her or her daughter because it will kill them. And he pretty much was just like, you gave me no choice. And Bond just like, you could tell he was angry and raging, just felt so bad. But in the end, he decided, yeah, I'm done with you. He just shot some cold blood straight to his face a couple of times, like, I'm done. But he knows he can't, be with her now. They're safe. He was able to, the little girl got over her mommy, and Nomi got her to a safe place. And eventually she, ends up speaking with Bond through Q. And he just has to tell her, you're not going to see me, and that's when she realizes, that vial that Safin kind of shrugged in her face. This will be, his little, if things don't go right, whatever, and all of this is just, what he'll utilize, in the end, so things don't work out. So something happens with him, whatever, and all, she could die, whatever, family members or whatever, and just ruthless in that instance. And in the end, Bond, of course, did a selfless thing, whichever. And she's like, we have time, whatever. And he's like, you have all the time in the world. And truly she does, to be her and her daughter. But it's just so sad because eventually the detonators find his way to the building and he blows up with it. I'm gonna tell you, when I was in the theater watching that scene, I got muscle and I have my mask on, so I'm just like the tears are coming a little bit and just like I want to blow my nose while I have this mask on. I'm just like, oh God, just yeah, again, bittersweet and full circle. But I kept trying to figure out how they're going to remove him. And it's just like, granted, he could move on, whatever, marry, but there's always like that feeling of if anybody they had him with, they try to hurt him, whatever, and all that. Because, full well, James Bond, aka Daniel Craig, will come back and want to deal with them if they did something to a family or whatever, or the love of his life. So in this instance, nobody can use him or use anybody against him now, whatever, he is gone. And it's just yeah, it was just so sad, but I'm just glad that he did this one final thing for someone he truly cares about. And I think in the end she was his daughter, because I like how she told him, it's like, yeah, she does have your eyes. And I'm just like, girl, who else were you? When you see the time frame between the time they were no longer together and the time how old that little girl looks, that's his child. It's like, I doubt seriously you were with any other guy after that, because when he wanted put her on that train and got her out of there after he thought that set him up in that situation at the beginning of the movie, she was distraught on the train, trying to run every time to see his face as the train run away, and he eventually, was in the shadows or gone. And it's just like, yeah. So, and then I love the scene they do where they kind of read like a little excerpt, all of the team, the agents and all that, seeing their farewell goodbye, and then a scene of Madeline telling Matilda that, let me tell you a story about, James Bond, and just kind of off into the sunset. So it's gonna be just really interesting moving forward who they will pick. I truly did enjoy the film. Again, definitely action packed. Never go wrong in that aspect. Love seeing, old characters and new characters. I loved the overall storyline. Nothing wrong with that, because I was trying to think, how could they make it just, bring it up a little extra notch on this last and final, hurrah for Craig. Again, with the villain, I'll say Malik did okay, whatever. No, he wasn't as. I will say the beginning scene for the backstory for Madeline, definitely very creepy, conniving, and just, yes. Overall, in other scenes with him, not so much, really didn't do anything for me per se, but I will say that scene of just how he was just, when he was coming out there to try to kill her or whatever, or when he came into the house, definitely gruesome. But overall, not what I'm used to with a lot of films, a little bit more, you know, just like, oh yeah, you're trash. But I wasn't really getting that from him. But yes, I like the send off. I know some people are, because in the end, what else can you do? Once they did that scene and the situation where he knew there was no going back, he can't be with her, he would infect her, whatever. And all, we just knew it was a done deal, and that would be that. But yes, I have rambled on you guys, but in the end, I really did enjoy this. Out of a 10, I'll give it. I give it about an 8.5. I really did enjoy this. I did. I'm just looking so bummed because I just can't see right now who they could possibly, put in this. But with a little bit of time passed on, we'll see who fits in it. Because I have to remind myself, when he was first introduced, I wasn't sure how I felt about him, but left a good impression on me. I really did enjoy Daniel Craig as James Bond. And I wish him well. I will say, I know he's ready to be done as well because he stated there after the last one, the amount of gruesomeness, with in regards to physicality with doing these films after so many years, being over 15, 16 years, so yeah, I can imagine he's ready to move on. So I say adieu to him. I enjoyed this. So with that said, you guys, comment below. Let me know what you think. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next review. You guys take care.